Hey everyone. So this is your welcome to week 2. If you're like me, week 1 felt like it was an entire quarter already, but we're already starting on to week 2. So in this video, to get us kind of oriented to week 2, we're going to talk about a couple things. I'm going to talk about how we're going to relate the content from week 1 to week 2. Then we're going to talk about, I'm going to go over the learning goals for our second week and some of the assignments that we'll have, some of the things we can look at. I'll do a little bit of reflecting after that. I'll do a little bit of reflecting on things that went well or didn't go well in week 1, some of it based off of your quick rates. And then I'll have a little personal reflection at the end, talking about kind of how this all went for me. To get started though, week 1 really focused on absorption spectroscopy. We started with looking at units and kind of developing a common language between mathematical language and units language that we could use. But then the lab we did was absorption spectroscopy. And in the video we had for absorption spectroscopy in the absorption lab, we kind of came up with these images, these spectra of wavelength versus absorption. And we had this idea. That's our lambda max. And we came up with this idea that light can be related to some amount of energy. And we really did this just in terms of kind of observational, right? We didn't give an explanation for why different molecules absorbed light. We just saw that they did. We saw that we could relate it to some energy associated with the photon. And we said, okay, neat. We can explain some colors of different solutions, different compounds. What we're going to do in week 2 is we're going to start to explain why that happens. So we're going to get deeper into, rather than looking at the energy of the photon, we're going to start talking about the energy of the molecules and the energy of the atoms. And we're going to come up with this idea that an atom is going to have energy levels, is going to have some energy associated with it, and we're going to have some energy transitions. That's going to give us a change in energy of the atom. So we're going to be putting energy in or getting energy out in terms of light. And that's really what we're going to get into starting with chapter 3. And this kind of connection of the atomic energy to the photon energy is going to get us started on the little bit of quantum mechanics we're going to do this quarter. So we're going to start talking about atoms. We did that a little bit last week, talking about the nucleus and the electrons. The electrons are held energetically through the Coulomb force. And now we're going to start talking about how we can manipulate those energies of the atoms with photons. In terms of our learning goals for week 2, we've got 6 main goals. It's going to be picking up on some of the ideas we started introducing last week. We're going to be looking at the electromagnetic spectrum, looking at the wave nature of light, characterizing light by its frequency, wavelength. And if you want to get started, that's the reading in chapter section 3.1. We're then going to move on to some of the fundamental ideas, talking about Planck's equation and how that leads to these really revolutionary ideas in terms of the way that we think about matter and how we think about light, and whether matter is a wave or a particle and whether light's a wave or a particle. This is generally referred to as wave-particle duality, but really that's just the human constraint on the way the physical world works. It's just both all the time, and it's a matter of which one we're looking at. And we'll talk more about that later on. Photoelectric effect, just like emission spectroscopy was one of the main things that made it so people started studying this. Albert Einstein with the photoelectric effect is that continuation. It was the second experiment that really gave rise to people believing in quantum mechanics and wanting to study quantum mechanics. And that's the line spectra as well. The Bohr model of the hydrogen atom, how these different ideas, these new ideas give rise to reformulating how we think about molecules, or how we did think about molecules in the early 1900s. And then extrapolating that or building upon that, we'll start to look at how we can talk about all atoms on the periodic table in terms of this wave particle nature of not just light, but also of electrons. To help us do all of that, we've got a lot of resources available. So we've got the textbook with all of its various readings. We've got our ungraded practice problems on LabPal. These will be activated Monday morning. They should be activated by the time you're watching this. And then we've got our list of video lectures here, in order in which you should watch them approximately. We've got this, Bozeman Science does some really nice kind of background on this. It's a supplement to essentially the textbook. But then we've got some videos by Dr. Neff, Dr. Scott, and I also have a video in here on quantum numbers for the end of the week. So lots of resources to help us throughout the week, and this gets us to the next topic I wanted to talk about, which was the looking back idea. One of the things I noticed was the video on Beer's Law, the definition of Beer's Law, which was one of the videos in week 1, which we can look at real quick. This video in week 1, that in my opinion was pretty important to understanding the lab and everything, by Thursday at midnight had 250 views, which is a lot, but considering there are 540 people in the class, that means half the class did not watch this video before Friday. This speaks to some challenges we might be having in terms of time management. So one of the ways I would encourage you to think about this is to here we've got 6 kind of things we should be working on. So we can try to work on 1.5 of those a day. And if we're doing a little bit, if we're doing 2 to 3 hours a day, hopefully we'll get through this. Another thing that was noticed was people really skipping the practice problems and the reading in the textbook and just trying to do the graded work. This creates a lot of confusion. The graded work was not designed to be done right off the bat. It's designed to be done kind of towards the middle or the end of the week, after we've done the practice problems, after we've done the reading, after we've made it through the learning objectives. The mastery questions are there to kind of check if we actually do have the understanding we're supposed to. Another thing that I noticed, looking at the discussion board, people started to use the discussion board towards the end of the week, but what you'll notice here is mastery question 4, the same problems keep getting repeated over and over again. So one thing I would encourage you to do is really peruse the discussion board and see if someone's already started a conversation about the problem that you have, because you might be asking a question that's already answered on the discussion board. Also, the questions that come up very often get pinned at the top. One of the instructors has to do that, but I saw mastery question set 1, problem 4 coming up often, so I pinned, one of the LAs had a really good answer to that, so I pinned that at the top. Also, on Tuesday of this week, right after I have my Tuesday office hours, I'll be posting week 2 office hours, and you'll notice inside here, if you didn't look at this before, here are my week 2 office hours. I answered these 4 questions in a 1-hour video. So you can look at the answers in a video answer. I did the same thing for my Wednesday office hours. I got a little bit better at listing out which problems I actually did, but here you can see mastery question 4 was done through video. So there's more resources than everyone has been using. The discussion board is a great place to kind of have that communication and start to really act as a community trying to learn this rather than acting as an individual off on your own. Office hours are going to continue as they have with the Zoom connections here. We've added the two of the LAs that are hosting office hours, so there's this additional Monday and this additional Friday for some additional help as well. Ultimately, most of us as instructors feel that week 1 went pretty well. It was a huge adjustment. It was exhausting. the instructors have been working on formatting this class and kind of getting this all together for about 2.5, 3 weeks before Monday when things started. And it took us that long just to get the technology figured out, get things in order, figure out where we're getting all of this material from. And we're frantically trying to get week 2 put together because that's starting now. So we've got week 2 and we're already frantically trying to put week 3 together while we're also trying to help you all on the week 2 content. It's been exhausting. Honestly, for me, I've been dealing with the registration issues as well. I've been dealing with the Canvas page issues. It's been a lot that I usually don't have to deal with that has just left me flat. And then, I've just been flat. And then office hours, doing the Zoom office hours, there's something about them that's just additionally exhausting, more exhausting. Like, during the quarter, I usually do 2 hours of office hours, and I'll go over. I'll do like 3 hours of office hours with students in my office, and it's fine. It's engaging. It's entertaining. The Zoom office hours, they're taking some getting used to. Figuring out how to record them has been really challenging. More and more issues with Zoom security have been coming up, and that's mostly through the Zoom recording. So I've been using technology outside of that, but it's been a really hard week. I recognize that it's probably more difficult for all of you than it has been for us as the instructors, because in addition to this class, in addition to your schedule getting upset as you were just getting used to college, you're now back home or back someplace else having to get used to a completely different style of how you do college after you were just getting used to having the classroom setting. It's a huge adjustment. We're gonna try to keep things consistent. We're gonna do things mostly the same from week 1 to week 2. We're gonna try to make some improvements. But yeah, it was really hard. And I hope week 2 is not as hard. Content-wise, week 2 might be really challenging for some of you. It is really stuff that you don't do in high school. So if you're one of those people who got through week 1 because you had good chemistry in high school, week 2 might be really hard for you. If you're one of those people who was feeling a little bit scared because week 1 felt really rushed because you didn't have, you haven't had high school chemistry in a long time, or you haven't had chemistry in a long time, week 2 is going to be difficult as well, but it's difficult for everybody. I'll put myself out there. Week 2 content, quantum mechanics, physical chemistry, energy, interacting with material, that's my favorite thing. If you want to get lost in conversations about quantum mechanics, email me, come to my office hours, set up additional meetings with me. I love this stuff. If you just want help on problems, come to office hours. I'll be recording them. The more people that come to office hours and ask questions, the more questions are answered in the videos for other people to use. If no one comes to office hours, there's nothing for me to really share. But we haven't had problems with people showing up. Watch the videos. Hopefully you're watching this video. I think video watching earlier in the week is a good idea. Textbook reading, I don't know if you're doing that, but the video watching I know was heavily postponed until the end of the week. Watching that earlier is a good idea. It's a lot. There's 7 videos, there are 9 videos, 2 videos a day. 2 videos a day and a little bit of reading. And we'll just hopefully make it through this next week. And then we'll worry about week 3. I hope you're all doing okay. The United States it's rough. I haven't listened to the news in the last few days, but it looks like social distancing is working. It looks like California's expected number of cases is in the last 2 weeks has dropped. It's still going to get bad through May, but it looks like it's working. It looks like we've come together as a society and we're doing what's needed to make it so we can get back to the lives that we enjoy.
So I hope you're all doing okay. Feel free to reach out if you want to talk to me about things that are non-academic. I'm happy to talk to you about that as well. So let's just talk. Okay, here we go. Week 2.